All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is David Covington. I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director for the Alumni Association of the City College of New York. Thank you so much for joining us for this workshop on how to use LinkedIn effectively to achieve your goals. We have a dynamic host tonight, Jerry Moy. But before I hand things over to Jerry, I do want to give just a minute or two for people to still join the large group tonight. I wanted to tell you just for a moment a little bit about the Alumni Association. It is an organization that has a remarkable history and can trace its origin to the first graduating class of 1853. If you aren't active with our association, which is a membership-based organization, I encourage you to reconnect with your alma mater and your fellow alumni by learning more about us. Consider joining or perhaps renewing your membership. You can learn more at ccnyalumni.org. Now, we do host many events throughout the year, but our largest event and an opportunity to really experience our association is coming up in less than a month. The annual Alumni Gala will take place on Thursday, November 5th, 6 p.m. And there are also a number of events surrounding it. So we have, for instance, a silent auction that is a week long, starting on October 29th, ending on November 5th. Due to restrictions on gatherings in large groups, we've of course moved our events online. So please learn more by clicking the link that will be in the chat in just a moment. Or you can go to ccnyalumni.org/events to learn about all of our upcoming events. Like so many other organizations, COVID-19 has presented significant challenges to meeting our mission. Pivoting quickly to the virtual space, I want to acknowledge and thank our event manager, Nina Farrell, who's on the event tonight with us. She's done a wonderful job pulling our online events together. And she would like me to remind all of you that this event is purposefully set up as a large meeting. So that means that later in the program, you will have an opportunity to unmute yourselves, ask a question, and engage with Mr. Moy if you wish to do so. Until then, please remain muted. And at any point in the presentation, if you wish to ask a question, you can send your message in the chat function. And Nina, our event manager, will field that question to Jerry for discussion. There will also be an opportunity toward the end of the event for you to unmute yourself and ask the question directly, but wait for that direction. We also recommend that you optimize your experience by viewing the presentation in speaker view, and that's the setting at the sort of top right-hand part of your screen. All right, so it's 6:03. We have a number of people already on the call. Let's get started. Tonight we welcome Alumni Association member Jerry Moy, class of 72. Jerry has worked in sales and marketing with the telecommunications and information technology industries. His experience with firms such as AT&T, Siemens, IBM span from the development of the PC to the World Wide Web to cloud computing and AI. So Jerry, thank you so much for hosting this workshop for us tonight. I'll hand it over to you to get started.
Thanks, David. I appreciate the introduction. I hope that you're going to stay with us for at least a little while. I know you have to run before the end of the program. So in any case, welcome everyone. Thanks for taking the time out to listen to our little presentation this evening. Let me just say that I'm going to talk to you about LinkedIn from my perspective, having spent 35 plus years in the information technology business, but I'm not going to speak to you from an expertise on LinkedIn perspective. On the other hand, I'm going to speak to you about how to use LinkedIn from a long-term user perspective, because that's truly what my experience with it is as a user. And I think what you'll see as the evening goes on is that if you understand why you do things with LinkedIn, you'll understand what you actually have to, how to do it, because all you folks are obviously bright and intelligent enough to know how to use your computer. You've gotten onto the Zoom call, so you've overcome step number one or block number one. Once you get past that, you can do almost anything. So let me just go into our presentation right now, and let's see if we have it here. Okay, I hope everybody can see the screen. If not, send a note in the chat to Nina, and she'll let me know. So in any case, what we'll talk about today is how to effectively use LinkedIn. So what the function of LinkedIn actually serves a lot of different functions. So the most important one, I think, at this point in time is actually helping people get jobs. You can use LinkedIn for education, for staying in touch with work colleagues, but I think the real crux of it at this point is looking at jobs and how to, get them, how to find out about them, how to interview, and so forth. And the first step is getting notice that you are available and you are qualified for a particular position. So that's the use of LinkedIn, and that's what we'll talk about tonight. And one of the things that, unfortunately, we've been going through with the COVID environment is that the impact on our economy has been pretty bad. Jobless rates are now at the worst point that it's been in for decades. Originally, I had planned this discussion for just the Asian alumni group, so I focused a little bit on Asian alumni or Asian jobless rates. And right now, they're at 10.7, or actually, this is August, they're at 10.7%. They're just a little bit lower now. But the situation a year ago at this time was the Asian jobless rate was about 2.8%. So it's been a multi-fold increase, and that's affected not just Asians, but everybody. So I think one of the things that we have to do is utilize every tool that's available to help us find jobs, maintain contacts with employers, and essentially and friends as we go through. Let me see here. So I looked at the list of attendees, and you guys cover a large span of people. You are current students, you are current, or rather recent graduates, and there's some old graduates like myself on as well, as I see. So I want everybody to think about what it is that you want to use LinkedIn for besides this. But right now, we're going to focus on the elements of, getting a job and going through some of the basics of LinkedIn. So, as I said, we're going to be talking a little bit about. Let's see, Shelley Roberts. No, you're not going to get control. The reason of why Facebook and why LinkedIn. Right now, some of you may have Facebook already, and in that case, you may say, well, why do I need LinkedIn as well? LinkedIn began way back in 2003, and that's about the time I started my first profile with them back in 2003, 2004. So it's been 17 years, 16 years or so that I've been working with them. And what's the difference between Facebook and LinkedIn? Facebook and Instagram are another social media platform. Is great for personal networking. You can keep in touch with your friends, your family, your classmates, and find out what's going on in their personal lives. LinkedIn, on the other hand, from the get-go back in 2003, has been designed for professionals and business people to maintain those contacts that you need in your work environment. And it's also an opportunity for employers to seek out new employees. So bearing that in mind, Facebook and Instagram have also taken on some degree of professional views on this. I've seen Instagram pages for companies. Instagram has been designed primarily for sharing of photos, as you know. Facebook also now, is trying to cater to businesses. But from the real pure breed view of the world, LinkedIn has been around for 16 years, 17 years, focused on the professional world of business networking. So I think it's important to look at it and also understand that Facebook and LinkedIn are intertwined. Employers will look at your Facebook page as well as your LinkedIn page. Where that is, just mute, please. Thank you. And so what I want you to stress is that if you have something that contradicts what you have on your LinkedIn page, on your Facebook page, make the effort to bring it into sync, okay? If you're working at a particular company in Facebook and you happen to mention it, it should be good to be in sync with it on LinkedIn as well. So, all right, let's keep going here. So what are we going to discuss this evening? I'm going to just cover a few elements of LinkedIn. We're going to talk a little bit about choosing a professional photo and why you should do that. Then there's something known as the profile summary, and you'll see that as on a LinkedIn page as about, and that's the lead-in. Then we'll talk a little bit about LinkedIn endorsements. These are skills endorsements, things that you're good at. And then we'll talk about recommendations, people that are familiar with your work, capabilities, and have taken the time to write a paragraph or two about what it is that they saw you doing and how well you were doing it. And finally, we're going to talk a little bit about the LinkedIn profile address. And that's a unique identity that you're given by LinkedIn when you establish a LinkedIn account. All right, so let's keep going here. All right, so we talked about the photos, and your photo is the first thing that people see when they log on to your LinkedIn page. And it should obviously be a friendly photo, and you should have the appropriate dress code and image that you want to portray there. That's going to vary, obviously, depending upon the industry you're working in and the type of work environment that you're looking at. So try to match up to that as much as you can. All right. And also, believe it or not, your picture is the opportunity to make that view of who you are obvious to a viewer, a potential employer, a recruiter, even an old friend who may not have contacted you in a while. It's the soft skills that you're trying to convey here. Whether it's your energy or your passion or your confidence for something, this is the way to do it. So at the end of the day, LinkedIn is a marketing tool for you, and the product that you're trying to market is you, yourself. Understand who it is that you are, sell your good points, and that first impression that you're going to cast is through your profile photo. Okay. So now you might want to ask, what's a good profile photo? Well, these are two interesting photos. I like the dog, and when I had a dog, my dog would ride with me in my car occasionally, so it was actually a lot of fun. But obviously, this is not necessarily what you want to send as a message on your LinkedIn page. These photos may actually be great for your Facebook page. You obviously want to send them on Instagram, but from a perspective of sending out a professional image, I would choose something else. So what might you want to choose? Simply, a good headshot. Those on the left. It's a simple, focused view of your face, your head, and shoulders, and a simple background. Now, there are also some headshots you can take, from the keg party that you're in when back in college, or your trip to New Zealand where you really love the view. But these are probably not the best photos to use for the purposes of your LinkedIn page. Remember, this is the first impression that you're going to cast when people or recruiters look at your page. All right, so let's keep going here. So let's look at what a profile page looks like. And somebody that's relatively familiar to most people, Barack Obama. And obviously you have his profile picture. It's engaging, he's smiling, simple background, we know where he is. And in the case of his headline here, as we call it, this is the title of that he holds at this point, and his educational background. You'll see also in his profile is a little bit different than most, but there'll be a section here that tells about what it is that you're good at. Obviously, I don't think Mr. Obama felt necessarily that he had to put a lot in there, but he has a little bit here where he talks about, some inspiring statements. So further down, you also have, listing of experience and what he's done over the years. So keeping that in mind, this is what, your profile page will look like when somebody, looks at you. So let's talk a little bit about each of those elements that I covered briefly. So the customized URL, when you sign up for LinkedIn, you're going to be assigned a public profile URL. It'll be basically this: www.linkedin.com/in/ and some number, a sequence of numbers. That's your particular URL. You have the ability to edit it to something that's a little bit easier to read and to remember. So I would recommend that you change it to something like linkedin.com/in/Franklin Chin in this case, or Lily Lee. You can change it to your name. You can add a middle initial, whatever, and it'll be legible. It'll be memorable. And what I highly suggest you do is include this URL on your resume. Studies have shown that people who have these links on their resume actually get a lot more attention than people who don't, to the degree of 70% more response with the URL included on the resume. So take that little effort. Editing the URL is relatively simple, and we can talk about that a little later, but it's a simple process. The headline, as I mentioned before, is, in this case of Barack Obama, it says former president of the United States. I don't think that really requires a lot of elaboration. We know what he did and what he's doing now. So in the case of yourself and myself, we don't necessarily have to have it as a job title. You might want to use it to talk about what you're good at, what you like to do. Use it to showcase some specialty that you do, or some value proposition that you bring to a company or to the table. So if you're a copywriter, not just write down copywriter, but a copywriter who can craft web content that goes viral. You're giving a little statement about yourself now in that little space that people see next to your photo. Or you're a PMP certified project manager who has led global projects. So again, people are getting a sense of who you are, and they haven't even read past your picture at this point. So the idea is market yourself, use everything that's there to your advantage, and not waste a single word or letter there. All right. When you finally get down to the summary space, that portion that talks a little bit about you in a couple of paragraphs, my recommendation is that you keep it short. Let me back up 1 second. There are no set rules here, okay? You can do whatever you like. The idea here is that you want to make this a document that, or a element that attracts attention, so that the right people will look at your profile and take the next step and talk to you. So the general view is that you should try to keep it short, 3 to 5 short paragraphs, and within that you have a bulleted section that talks to some of your skill sets. All right, you'll highlight skills, your qualifications, the places you've worked, the type of industries you've been involved in, and perhaps a few of the companies, if they're major companies, or even if they're not, things that are unique and special to you. And it's your opportunity to show that you're passionate about what you do, that you're not just reciting words. You're showing interest and excitement about some of the things you've done. So this little space, and by the way, you should try to do it in first person. I did this, I'm very interested in, as opposed to a dispassionate third person perspective. And what you should do is try to think of, especially if you're in the market and are looking for a new job, or thinking of moving on to something else. You've looked at job opportunities and job descriptions. Try to include some of the key words from those job descriptions that you've read, and if they make sense, include them into your summary. People will look and key in on those. Frankly, the recruiters who use automated qualification tools will key in on some of those key words when they do their initial search. So this is the way you start getting their attention. All right, so let's keep going here. So I mentioned about your skills, and we'll talk about endorsements, but LinkedIn allows you to list up to 50 skills on your profile. Now, if you have some unique skills, fire eating, juggling chainsaws, that's a wonderful thing. I'm not sure that they actually have listings for that within LinkedIn, but if you think it makes sense to what you do, you obviously have an opportunity to do that. More normally, you'll list skills that come along with the industries you've worked. If you've worked in financial services and banking and healthcare and so forth, you want to be able to throw a mention of the skills that are involved in those industries into your skills listing. If you have interpersonal skills that are particularly useful, if you're a nurse that has worked closely with patients and you have particular skill sets along the lines of supporting patients and physicians and staff, talk about that. And obviously, if you have technical skills, you have your Microsoft Office skills, you have Adobe Acrobat skills, you have Adobe Illustrator skills, whatever it is that makes sense you have and you think will be relevant to a future job, then obviously list those. And also try to get endorsements from your colleagues that you've worked with who know you have these skills. Now, the format of LinkedIn has changed over the years. In the very beginning, they would actually show you the names of the people who endorsed you and so forth. I've seen recently that it gets a little bit more anonymous now, so that people who endorse you don't necessarily leave their names on the endorsement. I'm not sure if that's good or bad, but stay tuned with LinkedIn, because like any other application in the world, it changes over time. And in 16 years, it's changed dramatically. So and especially now that Microsoft owns it, we will see how if they influence it any further than they have. So let's talk about recommendations. The recommendations are different than skill endorsements. These are the ability to have people write specific short paragraphs about you and your specific work efforts. They're not things where people say, Larry was a great guy. I think he was a wonderful person, and he did great work. That's really not what recommendations are for. They're a little bit more specific. They're looking for people to talk about, Larry managed this great global transition project from one application to another. He moved our office from Alaska to New York, and he accomplished the following things in the process. So the idea is that these are recommendations that come from people who are familiar with you and know the quality of your work. And when you read the recommendations, they will have their names associated with it. And these people are obviously willing to put their names out in public saying that they recommend you. All right, and the benefit of that is the recruiters who look at your profile will also see who you are connected to. These are people that give them confidence that obviously if you're being recommended by these people who are doing this type of work, you must be relatively good at it. And it's not a overall stamp that you're going to be perfect for the job in mind, but it overcomes that very first step for recruiters and potential employers to say, this person is worth talking to. And that's what the next step will be. All right, so recommendations are really critical in LinkedIn, and that's where I think you'll find that it doesn't have the same capabilities within Instagram or in Facebook. Recommendations, if you friend somebody, it's not the same. So, keep in mind, this is what the value of recommendations are for. All right, and let's keep in mind that LinkedIn is a living document, and in fact, it changes as you change. So you need to constantly review what you've written. Make sure that it reflects what you've done, what you're doing today, and if you've accomplished something new that's valuable to a potential employer, then you should include that in your profile. Now, keep in mind the way LinkedIn is set up. Every time you make a change, remember I mentioned back earlier on, right below your headline, there's an activities panel. If you change one word in your experience, it will notify all your connections that you've made that change, unless you set your notifications to private, in which case you can make as many changes as you like and nobody will be notified. Now, that may seem like sort of so who cares, if I let people know? Well, keep in mind, if you're still working at a job and your employer has access to your LinkedIn page and you don't want them to necessarily know that you're looking for a new position, then you should definitely set your notifications to private. You don't want your employer to necessarily know that you're, getting ready to bail. So that's just a good thing to keep in mind. Now, do you have some other skills, that are like, do you speak Farsi? Do you speak Mandarin? Did you volunteer to help with a COVID-19 food distribution project, or did you get a voters register project and help out on that? These are things that you do that aren't necessarily work related directly, but if you add these things onto your profile, it helps you stand out. You're not just a one or two dimensional person. You have other things that make up you as a person. So add those projects, your volunteer experiences, your languages, anything else that you think might be useful to help a potential employer or recruiter pull you out of the numbers, huge numbers. There are, by the way, on LinkedIn, there are approximately 300 million profiles. That's a lot of profiles. So you need, to find ways of standing out. And talking about, those profiles, you have to have connections. Now, there are people who brag about the fact that they have thousands of connections. It's like people on Facebook. I have thousands of friends. Well, I guess I would ask you to think, how real are these friends and how real are those connections if you have thousands of them? How well do they know you? How well do you know them? So I recommend not going for quantity. I think quality is the important point here. 50 connections, or so indicates that you're not a hermit. You understand how social media works. You know how to connect with people. My view is that up to the day I retired, everybody that I had in my connections were people I actually knew or had worked with at some point in my career. And I have over 500 connections. So at this point, I'm open to, mentoring. So I've been adding on a few here and there of people that, wanted to talk and get my perspective on things and, how they might, use it to help their careers along. So again, it's not a numbers game on connections. It's a quality of people that you know and what they can do for you and what you can do for them. So with that in mind, I wanted to just sort of close out and say one of the most important things you can do, and this is not directly related to LinkedIn, is you need to vote. And voting is really, really an important piece of your career and your life. And I'm going to take a little commercial here and just talk about one of the things you can do to vote. You have 3 ways you can vote. And it's all on this link here, www.voteearlynewyork.org, assuming that you live in New York. And the first one, obviously, you can vote in person. You can go to your designated polling location on November 3rd and, vote as you, seem to do as you see fit. Or you can vote by mail and return your ballot as early as possible before November 3rd. Now, obviously there are some issues regarding delays and so forth. So the third option is you can vote early in person. In New York, you can do that from October 24th through November 1st at your designated early voting site. Keep in mind, this early voting site isn't necessarily the same polling site you use if you vote in person on November 3rd. So again, go to the link, www.voteearlynewyork.org, and it'll give you all the information. You just put in your address, and you'll be able to get all the particulars. I think voting early is a great way to do this. It avoids the issues of crowds and potential coronavirus issues in crowds, and it also then helps you avoid any issues of from mail-in votes. All right. So with that, I will go back to Nina and say we're all ready for questions and go from there. Nina?
Well, in the chat, Jerry, we only have one question from a Roy Strauss, which is, will you be sharing this presentation with the guests?
I will send you, Nina, a PDF of it, and anybody that needs it, I'm sure you can forward it to them. Okay. Are there any other questions?
Hi, I have a question.
Sure. Brittany,
Can
right?
you hear me? Yeah, can you hear me okay?
I can, yes.
Okay, great. So, as somebody who's a younger person in the workforce, and I've only worked at, a couple of jobs in my field so far, and both of those companies were small. So what I'm thinking is, this goes back to how many people of quality you have on your LinkedIn. Like, there were 3 people at one of the companies I worked for. So does that look horrible? Should I be doing things like adding social friends or stuff like that?
Not necessarily, Brittany. I think that the idea is, what kind of work was it? What kind of business was it that you were involved in?
So I'm continuing in arts administration.
Okay, and the little companies that you worked in what were they?
One was a recording studio. I managed a recording studio, and the other one was a creative child care company where we hired artists and musicians to implement lessons during babysitting. So both of them, the recording studio was just me and the owner, and the child care company was just me and 3 other people in administration.
Okay. Well, I think that what you can do is you can go back to the recording studio owner and say, look, can you, would you like to be a LinkedIn, connection for me? And, even ask him perhaps to write, a recommendation about your, your work ethic and what you did for them while you were there. And this early on in your career, employers aren't looking for experience or numbers of people. They're looking for, potential, what you are able to do and what you've shown that you can do. So I would try to, get people to talk about, you're a diligent worker, you understand, complex instructions and can execute well. Whatever, is relevant to that role that you had previously. I think you can find lots of good things to have people say about you.
Okay, awesome, great, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
Yes, Jerry. I run a management consulting company, so I use LinkedIn hopefully to network, get clients, etc. And in my consulting practice, we like to meet with decision makers and those who meet with decision makers, which means the crowd I network with is generally older. So I went on a national networking site where you go from table to table and meet new people, and met a bunch of younger people. And where with my group, we typically put up our website, every one of them said, please send us your LinkedIn profile. Has LinkedIn replaced website?
No, it hasn't. So there are two different functions, Roy. I think the idea of a website is it promotes your organization and your, the product or the service that you're providing. But you'll see that people also using LinkedIn in a similar way. It's a little bit more limiting. Whereas with a website, you can include multiple pages and talk about different things that you offer. You can do photographs and videos. Well, you can do that. Videos on LinkedIn as well, but it's not the same interaction. I think you should probably have both. For example, the CCNY Alumni Association also has a LinkedIn page, and we have certain bits of information on there, but it's different from when you go on the CCNY alumni webpage. It's a different feel.
Yeah, I understand the difference between the two. I have both. Like if I post a blog to the website, it goes into my LinkedIn account. But what I was really asking from a communications viewpoint to the public, if I want to reach younger people, do I put LinkedIn instead of website and older people with the website, or it's just a unique thing I had that one day?
I think you should do both if you can. If you have the ability to list both, people will go to both. But just make sure that they're in sync. You're not saying something different on one and then on the other.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Jerry.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Anybody else, Nina?
Hi, Jerry. Good evening. This is Xinpei. First of all, thank you so much for this very informative workshop. By the way, Jerry is also serving on the Asian Alumni Board of Directors. Jerry, I don't know how many years, a long time ago, a LinkedIn account was created with an old, out-of-date email address. So do I have to create a new account using my current Gmail address? Because I've been receiving like bulletins, people want to connect with me, ask me to join them. So how would you?
Well, you can send one to Roy, and he can connect with you, right, Roy?
But, Jerry, one thing I wanted to mention, you mentioned number of connections. Very often, I will get an invite to link up with someone on LinkedIn that I don't know. And by seeing who they know, if they know people that I know or I know are valid, then I'll say yes. If I don't see any connections and I don't know where they got me from, then I'll say no. So it is important that if you have those connections, people see it, because it helps you see who knows the people you know in case you're interested in linking up with them.
Right. Roy brings up a good point. It's sort of like the Kevin Bacon, 3 degrees of, separation here. Matter of fact, that's how, when you look on LinkedIn, you see how far away from somebody you are. So, for example, I had Barack Obama on there, and he's a second, level contact for me, because somebody I know knows him. So things like that. Yeah, Roy, I think, you've got it right on. I don't think you should just blindly accept any invitation. You have to look for a purpose for it. If you know the person, or if you think that they are connected to somebody then it's really useful. And what I've been getting, as I said, is, invitations from younger people who are trying to find out, well, what do I need to do to get into this particular industry that I'm interested in, that you seem to have worked in. So, I'm more than happy to talk to people about that. And then, I would, usually hope that they would already know somebody that's somewhere in my broader network. And Zinpei, relative to what you just brought out, if you have an old one account and you still have the password, you can go back in there and just update with your new email addresses and so forth. You don't have to start a new account altogether.
Great, thank you.
Okay, this is Nina. I have a question here from Jeff. Jeff wants to know, can you demo the creation of a short economical URL?
Let me see. I'd have to get onto my page right now. I don't think I can do that easily here, or can I? No, I don't think I can do it here from this spot right now. What I would suggest is, if Jeff, does Jeff already have a LinkedIn account? Hello? Jeff?
Jeff says in the chat, yes, but it's undeveloped.
Okay. All right. What I can tell you, Jeff, is when you go onto your home page, when you initially log in, on the upper right-hand section, there's a picture of you and the words "me" on it. All right. If you see that, if you click on "me," with your picture, it'll bring you to a view profile page, and that view profile page then has a edit section, and from edit, you can edit your public profile URL. It's actually stated right there, and then you can change it from that numerical ending to your name, or whatever you think is appropriate. Okay. As I said, I wasn't going to spend a lot of time on the how. I was going to really talk about the why, but I hope that helps. Okay. Anybody else? Jeff, any response from Jeff on that, Nina?
Yes, he said, it sounds very straightforward, and thank you.
Yeah. Social media is probably a lot easier for most of you than it was for me, even though I was around for the invention of it. All right, anybody else? Yeah.
Nope, we don't have any new questions here.
All right, well, like I said, Nina, I will forward you a PDF of the presentation, and anybody that's interested can contact you, and you can provide them a copy. And if anybody has questions that come up later that they want to ask, just connect with Nina, and I'll try to get answers to you as best I can. Basically, just keep in mind, like any social media, there are lots of things you can Google about how to use it and what to do with it. I think the important thing is understanding why you need to do certain things. And once you understand why, you can figure out the hows, pretty quickly after that. So with that, I guess the only thing I wanted to, close if there's nobody else with questions is, just remember David's invitation about the gala coming up, and try to get involved with the gala. It's sort of a unique situation, obviously, with COVID-19. First time we'll be doing it online. And in terms of these workshops, there are other workshops coming up as well, not necessarily, presented by me, but by other alumni and people associated with City College. And I think Nina's planning one for business writing, which is coming up soon. And we also have one where I will be involved with financial planning and investing. We actually did one of those last year, and we're doing a second one this year. Probably aim for date has not yet been determined, but probably in the December, January timeframe. So just want to let everybody know that if they're interested, keep tuned in for information about those events as well. All right. So Nina, anything else? If not, I want to thank everybody for your kind attention and time. And if you have any questions, please forward them to Nina, and I will try to get back to you, and go from there. And good luck with LinkedIn. Good luck with your careers. If you have any questions about careers in general that I might be able to answer, forward those as well. I'll see what I can do to help.